Thanks to all of you for being here. You know, let me start with an idea that I get from people who know a lot more about this than I do, and that includes many of you in this room. And that's the phrase new category. Outcomes get really interesting when you can create a new category. We know that, right? We've seen it again and again. So to what degree is our business school, this place, our home, this family creating a new category, right? So we compete on many, many different fronts with a lot of great business schools, and the talent that's coming into this business school today is just so remarkable. And it needs to be, because these young folks, we're going to need them as a society to do a lot of important work, not just as individual contributors, but in working important things with and through other people. And you can use the word leadership in describing that. That's usually the word that I use. So, what's the new category? Now, you could say, look, we are very clearly the top public business school, and that's a great thing, but it's not enough. Here's a new category that we are establishing, and I'll call it the culture-led business school. Do other business schools have core values? Yes. If you go to their websites, can you find them? You will, somewhere. If you go to our website on your mobile, the first thing you're going to see is 4 defining principles. And do we use these for admissions? Holy smokes, do we use these for admissions? And other things. Are these words on a card and just words on a card? They are not. When we get an admit, for example, in one of our MBA programs with a GMAT, an entrance exam score of 790, 99th percentile, and a GPA of 3.8, the kinds of numbers that make you go up in the rankings, and we interview that person, and that person is spilling over with arrogance. Look, the world needs all kinds. There are a lot of terrific contributors to society that are arrogant. There's zero chance that person's going to get in. And if we're not doing that, then we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. So when we talk about confidence without attitude, are we taking it seriously? We are taking it very seriously. De facto, we always have, right? So 6 years ago, we wrote down those 4 defining principles. Most people read them and said, they've been here forever. This just happens to be coordinating or codifying a particular set of words, which is true. We didn't create that stuff. Question the status quo, been around here forever, right? We know that. If there's anything people would associate with Berkeley, it is that, right? And as we operationalize that with companies and say, these are people who come here because one of their first thoughts is, isn't there a better way to do this? That does not correlate one for one with intelligence. I know a lot of intelligent people who don't have that thought very often, right? So we take this stuff super seriously. And I talk about it all the time. Some people say, it's like, God, will you talk about something else, please, here? But other deans don't talk about their core values. And you can't find them on the website. And they all look the same. Go onto the websites of the other top 10 business schools in the world. See what you find. One of the other things that we did to discriminate, to differentiate our school, everybody knows that you set culture to make your organization strategically relevant, right? But you might think, well, what does strategic relevance mean? When we first sat down and said, so what 4 are we going to pick? You might have thought, well, we're going to pick something the way a CEO would pick it in a company. You think about your people, your staff, your faculty. How do they interact? How do they produce what they produce? How do we make sure that those staff to staff and staff to faculty and faculty to faculty interactions are doing what we need them to do? That's not what we did. Strategic relevance for us was about codifying a culture that set you and our students apart. Confidence without attitude, question the status quo, students always beyond yourself. Those differentiate our product, our output, our people, our graduates. Do we also use them internally when we think about staff-to-staff and faculty-to-staff interactions? Yes, but it's not where we started. We started by codifying a culture that we knew was valued, that we knew was true, and that we knew was different. True, valued, different. It's good old-fashioned, unique selling proposition analysis, but we define the culture over our people, our product, our graduates. So, do we take this stuff seriously? We do. I'm not going to walk you through all of that stuff. One of the things I am going to do, and now I'm going off script, but question the status quo allows me to do this. So, you know, a lot of people in this room are similar vintage to me, meaning you were here 30 years ago and some longer. So those of you that were here at that time will recognize this song. For the rest of you, you screwed up. You trusted me. Sorry. And I don't have any amplification on the guitar, so I'll do my best to make it hearable. Ain't no use sit and wonder why, babe, if you don't know by now. Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, he'll never do somehow. When your rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You are the reason I'm traveling on. Don't think twice, it's all right. Ain't no use in turning on your light, babe. Light I never knowed. Well, it ain't no use just turning on your light, babe. I'm on the dark side of the road. I wish there was something you would do or say. Try to make me change my mind and stay my way. Never did too much talking anyway. Don't think twice, it's alright. Ain't no use in calling out my name, gal, like you never did before. Ain't no use in calling out my name, gal. I can't hear anymore. I'm sitting and wondering, walking down the road. I once loved a woman, a child, I'm told. I gave her my heart, but she wanted my soul. Don't think twice, it's all right. La 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 la. Deep deep dop doop doop hey ah hey. Yep 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 now no. Hey hey la 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 no 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 no. So long, honey baby, where I'm bound I can't tell. Goodbye's too good a word, babe, so I'll just say fairly well. I ain't saying you treated me unkind. Could have done better, annual fund, but I don't mind. You just kind of wasted my precious time. Hey, don't think twice. Don't think twice. Don't think twice. It's all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. You know, when people ask me, I'm an undergrad here, as many of you are, and when people ask me to try and sum up Berkeley in one idea, and you could never do that, the one that comes to me most often is the one where, Berkeley's the kind of place that grabs you by the coat, grabs you by the shirt, it shakes you, and it says, you have more degrees of freedom to live your life than you realize. Now go use them. And that's part of why I do this with the students, is to keep this place loose and ready and agile, to allow them to think of themselves doing stuff that they didn't come in thinking of themselves doing. One of the things I love the most is when a student comes up to me halfway through the program and says, just to use it as an example, starting companies, when I got here, starting a company, they do that. Other people do that. Now, I do that. I get this. I may not choose to do it, but I get it. That's an identity shift. Do people learn the finance and the accounting and the strategy? Of course they do, but that's table stakes. When people, undergrads and grads, get to the other end of our program and they see themselves in totally different ways, with totally different pathways available to them, as I said before, we, society, we need them to do a lot of remarkable work, and that's part of what we're up to here. So as we think about what sorts of things, well, let me give you another concrete example here, and then I'll turn it over for a few questions. So if we look at some of the remarkable leaders that this school has produced, and there's so many. Joe Jimenez is the head of Novartis, and when we think of Danae Ringelman and Eric Schell as crowdsourcing the Indiegogo platform, many, many. Look, there's just such a long string of leaders that have come from this place. And when we start taking a big shiny principle like beyond yourself, a sense of stewardship for something larger, a sense of stewardship for something beyond just me and my own career. And we've all worked with people who don't have that much of a sense of stewardship beyond themselves and their own career. It's really hard to be managed or led by one of these people. And there are plenty of them. So as we think about this larger context, this wider angle leader, and you think about beyond yourself, I think all of us think, yeah, well, that's just anchored. Berkeley, public institution, service to the public, we get it. I mean, you go back to Bud Scheit and others in the 50s, and we were talking about business in society. We call it social impact today, but Berkeley's been about these things for a long time. But when we refine it even more and we say, but like sometimes recruiters will come to us and say, all right, let me take this principle beyond yourself. Show me what behaviors I'm going to see that are going to make me want to hire that person. And that's not an unreasonable question. So here's one answer. Of course, beyond yourself isn't these 3 things or these 5 things or whatever, but let me give you a concrete example. One thing that we know is true about our students, and I'll just give you an example. Our students will come in here, they will work hard on doing the reading for a core class, for example. They will take notes, they will work on those notes, they'll refine the notes, and then they will hit send. And they will send those notes to their classmates. But don't you realize only 6 of you are going to get an A in this class? Now, this happens a little more at the graduate level than the undergraduate level. The undergrads know they have to get into graduate school, but still, this is a feature of the way our students are. And in most industries, if you actually said, here are 2 companies that are the same in every respect in the same industry, except for one behavioral norm. And the one behavioral norm is, in version A of this company, people hoard information from one another inside the company. And of course, that's human nature, right? We want to be indispensable. You can expect that to be the equilibrium if you don't manage this part of culture. And in example B, we actually share information with one another. Most people hear that story and think, company B could be worth 10% more in the marketplace, and maybe even more than that. That one behavioral norm. So when I'm talking to recruiters, I can say, all right, beyond yourself, these are team players in many senses, and in exactly the sense that they will share information with colleagues and they won't hoard it. Is that something you want to hire? All of them say, that's something I want to hire. And graduates from other business schools are not viewed that way. Right? So it's sort of like, can you sort of fill the whole stack from shiny principle down to behavior everybody wants to hire. And we are doing that. So when we talk about the sorts of leaders who come from Berkeley, when we talk about the Berkeley leader, and increasingly we are talking about this, we have to always be strong, as we have been in the past, in the finance and in the marketing and the strategy and the mechanics. But this is increasingly viewed as a school where not just leaders come from, but leaders of a particular kind. Leaders of this culture, of these values, of this place, of this geography, of this time. And it is a great leadership profile. And we are establishing it as sharply as we can. So that's part of what we're doing in terms of the vision of the school. There are lots of smaller elements, very important elements. I mentioned yesterday at lunch, we're launching, just as one example for our undergraduate program, we're launching a new dual degree program in business and engineering for the undergrads. This is going to be really exciting, right? So currently, no undergrad gets into Berkeley knowing she or he is in the business school. You apply as a sophomore. These would be people who would apply to both degrees as freshmen and would be admitted. You know, the last time a Haas undergrad won the valedictorian award on campus, not the best student at Haas, the best student at Berkeley, graduating that year, it's called the University Medal. This was a student about 13 years ago who also, with no help from us, was able to finish an EECS degree, electrical engineering, computer science, and Haas. There are superstar people out there, and by the way, sorry to get competitive on you, but Harvard can't do this. They do not have an undergraduate business school. Stanford can't do this. So when those two business schools say, we are going to stick to our knitting and we are going to play full-time MBA and only full-time MBA, leaves a lot of opportunity for us to exploit as a school. Let me take a couple of questions. I really only have time for a couple, but this is the school that the alumni built. Literally and figuratively. These three buildings were the first privately funded buildings on this campus. The faculty chairs, the student aid. It was alums who said, we're going to make this place great. The state made this place. The alumni made it great. We need you to keep investing in this remarkable place. We have a big obligation. If you could see the talent coming through here, we all know what we need them to help us do. We need you to stay close, okay? Let me take a couple of questions, please. Who's got a thought or a question? Please.
Can you tell us about the North Building?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so tell us about the North Building, which most of you came in that way, so you saw that big structure there. It is going to be a fourth building, obviously. It is about 80,000 gross square feet. The existing three buildings are about 240, so it's adding about a third. It is adding a totally different third, however. That building is totally dedicated to students. So it's new classrooms, flexible use classrooms. You could do a new product development class in these kinds of classrooms. So of course there are tiered classrooms, the traditional type, but there's a lot of flat flexible use space. There is a 300-person auditorium convening space on the top floor. It'll have great views, and it will be a world-class venue at about 3 times the size of the Wells Fargo room. It has breakout space. The students have to do a ton of work in groups and teams because the world of work does a lot more work that way. And we were very, very light on that kind of space. It is completely privately funded. It will open in January. We may have some limited use in December and possibly in November, but we're counting the months now, literally. And the naming gift came from a 35-year-old, $25 million. People are stepping out. By the way, it came from a 35-year-old who not only has done well, but we'll mention two things immediately. We haven't announced the name yet, but we'll mention two things immediately in describing why. Number one, the principle of beyond yourself is something she talks about a lot. And two, student financial aid. This place made it possible. It's an undergrad alum. Most of our big gifts have come from our undergrad community, actually. All right, thank you. How about one more, and then I got to introduce our wonderful speaker, Steve Blank. One more quick one, please. What year, sorry? Oh my, yeah. So it's, the Martin guitar is, I've had it for a long time. And I, you know, I work hard. I don't want you to think I spend all my time playing the guitar. I absolutely do not do that. Anyways, thanks for asking that question. So I couldn't be more excited about, our school, our institution that we share has advanced a lot over the last few decades, right? And the deans that came before me put a lot of that impetus into the system, right? They built a financial model, they launched programs, all that stuff started long before I got in the seat. But it's still marching. I mean, just one small indicator, right? Our part-time MBA program has ranked #1 for the last 4 years in a row. It's always been good. 15 years ago, it was number 5 or 6. Now it's 1 the last 4 years. Our undergrad program ranks #2 in its most important ranking by far. It's the U.S. News. It ranks #2. Penn is #1. This undergraduate program with engineering may help. And our MBA program, just as one, there's zillions of rankings out there. By most rankings, including admissions, head-to-head admissions battles, we rank sort of 6 right now. The most recent ranking, important ranking that came out, full-time MBA, was the Financial Times, and that's the most important international ranking. That one's actually global. I went back into the data to see what we look like in the Financial Times, because it just recently came out, and I had a bunch of old printouts. 8 years ago in the Financial Times, which kind of stunned me, but I'd maybe blotted it out of my memory. But we were ranked number 31 in the FT 8 years ago as a full-time MBA program. And then we went to 28 the following year. It's an annual. And then we went to 24. And then we jumped to 14. It's like, now that's getting closer. It's not quite there yet. But then we jumped to 12. We moved to 12. We went to 11. We went to 10. This year we went to 7 in the world. And we went to 5 in the US, and the 2 schools we passed to get to 5 in the US were Chicago and MIT, 2 terrific business schools, right? And so there's a lot of momentum, and thank you. Let's pledge here together to keep that momentum going. Psychological permission to take this to the top. Not just because we want to be Harvard or whatever school is at the top for you. We're going to do it our way and with our own category.